Triton 9 is not a moon, it is a pressurized tomb. Below the icy crust lies an ocean 60 kilometers deep. At the bottom, in the Hadal trenches, the pressure is 10,000 tons per square inch. It is a place where physics stops being a set of rules and starts being a hungry beast. In this crushing darkness live the Pressure-Wraiths. They are translucent, serpentine entities that don't hunt with teeth or claws. They hunt with vibration. By pulsing their crystalline scales, they create localized cavitation bubbles, pockets of vacuum that collapse with the force of a depth charge. They don't eat you, they simply vibrate the air out of your lungs and the structural integrity out of your hull until you implode into a red smear. The first human mining colonies thought they could hide behind titanium alloy hulls. They were wrong. The Wraiths sang to the ships, a low-frequency hum that turned the reinforced metal into brittle glass. We found the wrecks of billion-dollar submersibles crushed into the size of refrigerators. No survivors. Just the silent, heavy weight of the abyss. But humanity does not retreat from the dark. We just change our state of matter. We are the density divers. We don't use submersibles. A sub is just a pressurized bubble waiting to pop. Instead, we use liquid ventilated suits, LVS. Before we dive, we don't breathe air. Our lungs are filled with a hyperoxygenated perfluorocarbon, a cold, dense liquid that equalizes the pressure inside our bodies with the ocean outside. We are non-compressible. We are part of the water. We don't hide from the 10,000 tons of pressure. We wear it like a second skin. I am Commander Elias Thorne. My lungs are full of liquid, my heart is beating at 30 cycles a minute, and I am about to sink into the mouth of hell. The deployment from Anchor Fortress Aegis 7 was a silent drop into the void. There is no splash in the deep. You simply step out of the airlock and the abyss swallows you. The water at this depth is so dense it feels like moving through gelatin. Every movement requires 100 times the effort of a surface dweller. Check your seals. If you see a bubble, you're dead, I said through the haptic comms. Sound doesn't travel through our helmets, it travels through the vibration of our skulls. Density 2 Sarah, synced. The water is heavy today, Elias. I can feel the Wraiths humming in my teeth. Density 3 Jax, synced. I have a lock on the tremor. They're targeting the thermal vents. The Wraiths appeared like ghosts made of glass. They were 30-foot ribbons of shimmering, translucent flesh, flickering with internal bioluminescence. They didn't swim so much as they rippled through the water. In the center of their heads were plates of organic crystal that began to glow a sickly violet as they noticed us. Contact. They're initiating the resonance. Blades out. A Wraith lunged toward Jax. It didn't strike him. It stopped 10 feet away and began to vibrate. I saw the water around Jax begin to blur, tiny bubbles of vacuum forming in a halo around his suit. The sound was a screeching, metallic whine that bypassed the ears and rattled the brain. Jax, move. He's trying to cavitate your chest plate. Jax fired his suit's thrusters, short, violent bursts of pressurized water. He closed the gap in a second, moving like a silver bullet. He didn't fire a torpedo, he swung a vibroblade. The 3-foot blade of tungsten carbide was vibrating at 60,000 hertz. He slammed the blade into the side of the Wraith. Because the pressure is so high, the eel's flesh didn't just bleed, it erupted. The neon yellow ichor sprayed out in a pressurized jet, clouding the water. The Wraith shrieked, a shockwave of sound that knocked me back 5 meters, and began to thrash, its ribbon-like body coiling around Jax. I didn't watch. I had my own shadow to kill. 2 Wraiths were circling me, their violet crystals strobing in a lethal rhythm. I felt the first cavitation pulse hit my shoulder. My armor, reinforced with synthetic diamond weave, groaned under the sudden vacuum collapse. The impact felt like being hit by a sledgehammer. I didn't use my thrusters. I used the weight of the water. I dropped into a combat crouch on the silt-covered floor and launched myself upward. I grabbed the nearest Wraith by its pulsating throat. The creature was freezing cold, its skin feeling like wet marble. It tried to vibrate, but I slammed my grav gauntlet into its head. The gauntlet didn't just hit. It emitted a localized gravity burst, momentarily increasing the pressure on the creature's skull by 10-fold. The Wraith's crystal plates shattered. The creature's head imploded under the sudden weight of the ocean it had spent its life mastering. I didn't let go until the flickering violet light in its body died out. They're swarming the fortress. The floodlights are attracting too many. Sarah's voice was a frantic rattle in my head. I looked up. Thousands of smaller Wraiths, juveniles the size of men, were descending from the trench walls. They were a carpet of shimmering glass, a wall of white and violet light. They were targeting the fortress's primary thermal core, the only thing keeping the colony from freezing into a block of ice. Density Squad formed the vanguard. Protect the core. We converged at the base of the Aegis 7 thermal exhaust. The water here was boiling, creating a chaotic environment of steam and silt. We stood our ground, 3 humans against an ocean of monsters. We didn't use guns. Projectiles are useless in the abyss. The water drag stops them in meters. We used chain harpoons and seismic hammers. The first wave hit us like a tidal wave. I was swinging my hammer in wide, heavy arcs, each impact sending a shockwave through the water that shattered the translucent bodies of the eels. Sarah was a blur of motion, her twin blades felling wraiths by the dozen. We were a slaughterhouse at the bottom of the world. But the king wraith was still coming. From the deepest part of the trench, a shadow emerged that made the others look like minnows. It was 100 feet long, its crystal plates as large as shields. It didn't ripple, it carved through the water. Its hum was so powerful that the silt on the sea floor began to dance in geometric patterns. Elias, that thing is going to vibrate the fortress off its foundations. Jax yelled. The king wraith aimed its head at the Aegis 7 thermal vent. I saw the water begin to boil violently as it initiated a massive cavitation bubble. A bubble large enough to swallow the entire reactor. Jax, Sarah, anchor my lines. I'm going in. I didn't wait for a reply. I fired my heavy-duty harpoon directly into the king wraith's tail. The titanium cable hissed out, connecting me to the monster. I activated the winch, pulling myself toward the thrashing leviathan. I was a flea on the back of a god. The vibration was so intense I could feel the perfluorocarbon in my lungs starting to foam. My vision was red with burst capillaries. I reached the head of the king wraith and crawled onto its crystal crown. The creature realized I was there. It tried to pulse, a massive shockwave of energy that nearly tore my arms from their sockets. My armor was cracking. I saw the hull breach warning flashing on my HUD. I didn't have time to use the hammer. I reached into my belt and pulled out a static disruptor, a device meant to clear mineral blockages in the mines. It was basically a localized EMP for physical matter. I jammed the disruptor into the gap between the king's crystal plates. Equalize this. I roared. I triggered the device. The explosion wasn't fire. It was a sudden violent cessation of all vibration in a 10-meter radius. In a world defined by pressure and frequency, the sudden silence was a death sentence. The king wraith's crystal crown shattered into a million pieces. Without its ability to regulate the pressure around its brain, the ocean did what it does best. The king wraith's head collapsed inward with a sickening thud that I felt in my marrow. The leviathan went limp, its massive body drifting down into the silt. The thousands of smaller eels, sensing the death of their king and the loss of the resonance, scattered back into the dark crevices of the trench. The silence returned to Triton 9. Not the violent silence of the wraiths, but the heavy, peaceful silence of the deep. I lay on the sea floor, my suit hissing, my oxygen levels at 5%. I watched the silt settle around the massive corpse of the king wraith. I felt the weight of the water pressing down on me, but for the first time, it didn't feel like a threat. It felt like a victory. Elias? You still with us? Sarah's voice was soft, tired. I'm here, I rasped, the liquid in my throat making my voice sound like a gargle. I'm still solid. I looked up at the Aegis 7 fortress. Its floodlights were still shining, a golden beacon in the endless night. The thermal vents were still pulsing with heat. The colony was safe. Humanity had proven the ultimate truth of the abyssal conquest. You can hide in the deepest trenches of the galaxy. You can use the weight of a world as your weapon. You can try to crush us with the very air we breathe. But we are the species that adapts. We will fill our lungs with the ocean if it means we can kill the things that live in it. We are the density divers. We are the ones who are too stubborn to pop. The king is dead. The trench is quiet. Triton 9 is ours. The mission is over. We are going back to the airlock. And I want to breathe air again. Just for a minute. I'm tired of the wait.